Alright, so now we're going to dive right into this, but before we do this, I just want to show you that I already saved my document in my website folder, and I have my cropped images here, already cropped out for me, the images I'm going to be using, and the rest I'm going to style in the style sheet. But yeah, so how you just save the document, if you don't know, you just go save as, and we're going to save this document as index.html, and I'm saving this in my website folder, which I already did. Alright, so first we're going to start off with just writing HTML, letting the browser know that this document is an HTML document. Next, we're going to add our header. And we'll indent this, and all I'm doing is hitting tab on the keyboard over to indent that. And in the header, we're going to add some information. We're going to add a link so that the browser knows to first pull whatever's in this link, which is going to be the style sheet. So let the browser know that it's going to be a style sheet. The type is going to be text/CSS, and this is where we're going to let the href basically lets the browser know where that file's at. And since we're not going to put it in a folder, it'll just be in the same document where the header is at, and that's in the style, and that's in the same folder basically, so we don't have to add a directory, and it's going to be the style.css folder. Alright, so now that we're done that, congratulations, you have just finished your first step. You already told the browser what type of document it is, and you already told the browser where to go to pull some information on how to style this document. Alright, now if we can get out of that. Okay, so now we're going to do our body, and in our body we're going to have a overall page wrapper. This is basically going to position all the things that are on the page, most likely center. That's how we're going to make it, but we'll figure it out when we style it. So wrapper overall, and actually I'm going to put some information here for myself to know. That's how you do that. It's like some, I guess you say this is like your mock-up text or markup text of what you want to put, and I'm going to say this is the page wrapper, so I remember that when I go to style it. Next, we're going to add another markup here, and we're going to name this the main header left, and we're going to make another div, and that class is going to equal header, and we're going to close out of that. And then I probably want to put the phone number on the right side of the screen, so in the header on the right side of the screen I'm probably going to do main header right, so I remember this for my CSS rules when I do the CSS sheet, and it's going to be div class equals let's just name this, I guess I'm going to put the phone number here, so we'll just name it phone number for now. Oops. Alright, and by the way, don't forget to close out of your divs, never forget to do that, so just make sure we close out all this. And we're going to add the information here in a little bit, but for now I'm just going to write it out. So we're just going to be doing the divs at this moment. Next, we're going to have the navigation, so we're going to just basically do another little hint for myself to know that this is where the main nav is going to go. And again, we're going to write div class equals nav main, and again we'll close out of that div. Next, underneath the menu, I'm probably going to want a slider, so we'll remind myself that I'm going to put a slider image here, and again we'll add a div class. So as you can see, this is really fairly simple. We're just adding these classes here, which we're going to style. These classes are going to be used for the styling part, and you'll see how that works later on. But again, it's fairly simple. We're just basically creating the skeleton of our website. And again, I remind myself that this is probably where I'm going to want to probably add, like, I don't know, like free buckets. You ever see on websites how they have like 3 different boxes with different information? Well, that's probably what I'm going to want to add here, and I call them buckets, so I'll call it call to action buckets. And again, what we're gonna do is this time we're gonna wrap these buckets in a wrapper. And I'll explain this more when we get into the CSS part of it. But right now, we're just gonna create this wrapper. So we're gonna call it wrapper buckets. And again, we're gonna close out of that div, and then we're gonna create our first bucket that's gonna go here. So we'll call this bucket 1 food, because it's gonna be for a restaurant, and we'll name it div class equals, again, it's gonna get boring right now, but just follow along and type it on the screen as you see it. And we're gonna call this wrap bucket buckets inner. So it's the inner side of the wrapper. Alright, so wrap buckets inner 1. And again, we'll close out of this div. And now we're going to do the same thing. So what we could do to make this a lot easier, what we could do is just copy. I'm on a Mac, so I'm doing Command C, and I can paste that, and I can paste that, and I can just change this to remind myself that these are different buckets. So there you go. So now we're done all the buckets. Cool. Next, we're gonna have to, let's see what we're gonna now. Next, what we're going to do is add a background behind the bucket. I don't know if I'm going to do this, but let's say if we do want to add a background behind these buckets, you know, maybe it's going to be orange or whatever, we'll do that. So we'll do calls to action. Now, this is reminding myself, so when I do the CSS, I know exactly what I'm looking at here. And let's call this backgrounds, backgrounds, and that's that. And again, we'll add another div and we'll add a class, and we'll equal that to action background, action background, like that. And we'll close out of that, and we'll close out of that div, just like that. Okay, next we want to put the body, which is going to be where all our content's going to go, so basically the main body. So actually, let's again put a little calls to action for us to remember this, so when we style it, we're not lost of where these files are. So main content, and under the main content, we're going to have div class equals, and we'll say main body. Yeah, that's what we want to call it. Alright, so that's what I'm going to call it. You can call it whatever you want, but that's what I'm going to call it. And other than that, we just want to create a footer. So again, well, remember this is the footer of our document, the bottom of our site, and we're going to just do div class equals footer. And then after all that, we're going to close out of that, and then we're going to add another div close out of, because if you remember, this whole page is wrapped. If we go back up here, the whole page is wrapped in an overall wrapper, so we want to close out of that div, which we just did right there. And then we're going to do our last thing, which is close out of our HTML. Oops, HTML. Alrighty then, so it seems like we're all good. Just make sure here, and I believe no, we're not. So we want to do one more. We're actually going to close out of the body, because this is all in the body. So there we go. So now we are all done. So right now what we just did is we created all the divs we need, basically the skeleton structure of this HTML document. Now if we would save this file and go to open it up in the browser, you would not see nothing on the screen, because basically this isn't done yet. We have to add content within these divs, but right now we have created the skeleton, and we're going to get ready to go into our next step, which is adding the information we need within these divs. Okay, and next we're gonna have chicken